individuals, including specific taxpayers who are affected by that. And ultimately, the tax preparation industry doesn't want to see, who's very strong, by the way, when it comes to these tax debates, doesn't want to see the tax code simplified to the point that they're useless, right? This idea that you could sort of just mail in for your tax return and get a check, that doesn't appeal to the tax return industry because they want to keep this thing complicated enough that you need help.
Yeah, of course, we all love to have Adriana on a postcard. Of course, if they get rid of all the deductions, we might, but then we might also be paying higher taxes. So this is seriously a complicated issue.
It certainly is, and it's not going to be, I don't think it's, tax reform is going to be any easier to pass and form consensus than the failed health care endeavor. Well, I think one area of consensus they could find is that I think even Democrats and Republicans both want to lower taxes for the middle class. Both parties want to support small businesses. Where it's going to start getting complicated and divisive is, let's say, the corporate tax rate, lowering the corporate tax rate. Republicans fully support a dramatic cut there, which will repatriate billions of dollars in the United States and return those companies and jobs back home where they belong. But then Democrats prefer the strategy of punishing corporations with higher taxes. And so there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of conflict here. That being said, when you cut tax rates, like Vince pointed out, you have to make up that shortfall somewhere else, especially for the Republicans calling for tax reform to be revenue neutral. And so where is Donald Trump going to make up that shortfall? Well, if you widen the tax base, you're going to create more tax revenue there. You have to dramatically cut spending, fraud, waste, and abuse in our government. And I think another area where President Trump should take a hard look at is removing tax-exempt status from universities. They're for-profit industries, yet they're getting this massive loophole of not, tax-exempt status, and we're losing billions of dollars in tax revenue.
I love that idea. I think that would be popular. And Vince, I do believe some Democrats will go for lower corporate tax rates, particularly those in cities that are trying to lure business or would like to see job growth. So I think the big problem is going to come with the individual side and the argument that, hey, rich people are being rewarded. Ironically, listening or reading between the lines between President Trump and Steve Mnuchin, I think that's where rich people are going to lose out, maybe on some of these deductions, some means-tested benefits and things like that.
I think that there's a whole bunch of headwinds that the Trump people are going to be running into, and here's some of them. One is that Steve Mnuchin's is described as being a little bit more liberal on tax policy, and that's not going to appeal to the House Freedom Caucus yet again. So you'll have conservative Republicans whipped into a frenzy. And then meanwhile, Democrats, by and large, have shown no evidence whatsoever that they want to cooperate with Trump on anything, even things that they like. So while Republicans are going to try and say, hey, you're holding up a tax cut for the middle class, why are you doing that? Democrats are simply going to respond with something like, you're enabling the rich. You're making the rich get richer. And they'll continue to persist because they derive a fundraising benefit out of always being the opposition, even on legislation where they agree. I hate to tell you this, but I don't have a rosy view of this getting through and easily at all.
Well, it sounded like low-hanging fruit. I'm still optimistic it happens, but we know it's going to be a lot more complicated than everyone thought. Guys, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
So what happens when